Okay, so it was the 2014 NBA Finals. LeBron James, you know who he is, 6'8", 275 pounds at the time, was playing my San Antonio Spurs. And no air conditioning. He was sweating profusely, and guess what? He got cramps. And so a lot of people were making fun of him. I really didn't know how serious hydration was. I kind of called him weak. So here are some of the things that we saw as Spurs fans that we begin to make a mockery of his pain. So hence the term was born, LeBroning. Okay, so they're saying that he was trying to feigning injury, whatever the case may be. And this is how some of my Spurs fans saw this, okay? So you see they're making fun of him, or whatever the case may be, having to be carried off the court, or whatever the case may be. So, but in reality, despite him not being able to complete the game, whatever the case may be, we found out something about hydration, is that dehydration is really a serious matter. Okay, can any of you think of times, we've got a variety of athletes here, we got runners, we've got you're involved in CrossFit, whatever the case may be. Can you think of a time where hydration kind of either positively or negatively impacted your performance?
I know yesterday I was doing Taibo fitness. I just started the day before yesterday was my first day, and like midway through I felt like I was gonna pass out. The room was really hot. But then I just went and got my water bottle and took maybe 3 or 4 gulps, and I definitely felt a little bit better and more hydrated, and then it definitely impacted my performance to be able to keep going.
Very good. Anyone ever heard of Corey Stringer? Does that name ring a bell with anyone? Any football fans?
No.
Yeah, he died.
Yeah, exactly. He died from dehydration. I remember, I'm old enough to where I remember when coaches used to look at it and say, kind of use hydration as a reward. Okay, so if you did something great, you got a drink of water. And if you did something bad, they kind of refrain you from getting water. Richard, you can probably sympathize with it. You're a football guy. Okay, so now, as far as hydration is concerned, there are a couple points I want to remember. There are two factors involved with hydration. One is water volume. Obviously, everyone talks about that. You talked about getting water. The other, unbeknownst to a lot of people, is that solutes need to be replaced as well. When I say solutes, we'll get into that later on. So another thing to remember is this is how the body benefits from proper hydration during exercise. From a cardiovascular standpoint, you have a lower heart rate and you have a higher stroke volume, higher cardiac output, which means the heart puts out more blood, higher skin blood flow, lower core temperature. That's very important because as your core temperature rises, some of the important enzymes that's involved in digestion and maybe even respiration can be destroyed from an increased core heat temperature. Also, there's a lower perceived exertion. I like the example that Jaleesa used. She said that things seem to get easier after she drank some water. Okay? All right, so better performance also as well. Now, from the negative, we've got what can happen if you don't, the effects of hypohydration. Hypohydration, hypo obviously means below, and when you're not hydrated, you can reduce your endurance levels, fatigue, poor stamina, impair recovery between workouts, muscle cramps and joint pain. We'll get to that and talk about what level of dehydration you have to be at in order for that to happen. Cognitive impairment, so you have difficulty focusing, things of that nature, increased risk of injury, severely hypohydration, electrolyte imbalance, kidney failure, and just like we're talking about, you can even die. So that's what happened with Corey Stringer. Now, I want to pay attention to just a couple of things here. Obviously, we have 7 different levels here. To the left, this graph shows what percent of body water loss you have to be at. And to the right, there's the symptoms that will correlate with that particular loss. I want to pay attention to 2 and 4, okay? So at 2 and 4, at 2% dehydration, first of all, look at what happens before you're 2% dehydrated, okay? So it's increased strain on the heart, reduced aerobic endurance, cognitive impairment. Then at 2%, that's when you start to get thirsty. Okay? So look at what happens, all these things that happen before you start getting thirsty. So here's the truth. If you can just have one takeaway from this little clinic, is that thirst lags behind need. Okay? For that reason, so thirst lags behind need. So by the time you're getting thirsty, you've already gotten to the point to where you passed the point of needing to be rehydrated. At 4% is where I believe LeBron James was or more, because that's where reduced muscle strength, fine motor skills are impaired, and also you get heat cramps. Okay, so when I took my certification for a personal trainer, they had a graphic that said that if you're only 1 to 2% dehydrated, it affects your strength by about 10 to 15%. Okay, so small dehydration, huge impact on your performance. Hydration before exercise, we're going to talk about it in three areas: before, during, and after. Especially now that it's getting hot now, people are sweating, whatever the case may be. So before exercise, drink 16 to 20 fluid ounces of water or sports beverage at least 4 hours before exercise. So I've got some examples of sports beverages there and some cups if you want to sample. Then drink 8 to 12 fluid ounces of water 10 to 15 minutes before exercise. Now, we have we talked about water volume and solutes. Consume a beverage with sodium and or small meals to help stimulate thirst and retain fluids, okay? So not only do you have to replace your fluids, your water volume, you also have to replace your solutes as well. Hydration during. Drink 3 to 8 fluid ounces of water every 15 to 20 minutes. Jaleesa said that when she drank just a few gulps, it helped to improve her performance. And drink 3 to 8 fluid ounces of sports beverage, 5 to 8% carbohydrates. Let's get back to that. Every 15 minutes when exercising greater than 60 minutes. So why do you need carbs if it goes greater than 60 minutes? Why do you think you need carbs? Energy, very good, yes. So if it's less than 60 minutes, not so important, but however, if it goes greater than that, carbohydrates is your main fuel source, okay? So we've got some long distance running out there. I don't do long distance running or whatever the case may be. Maybe marathoners, half marathons, whatever. If it goes longer than 60 minutes, you have to increase carbohydrates as well. Do not drink more than 1 quart, for an hour of exercise. We have this thing called gastric emptying. Your body just can't assimilate that much water, process that much water. Hydration after, it's important to weigh yourself before you're going to sweat a lot and weigh yourself after. For every 1 pound of weight loss, you need to drink 20 to 24 fluid ounces of water or sports beverage for every 1 pound loss. Okay, so just to kind of summarize, thirst lags behind need is probably the most important thing. Also, when it comes to solutes, replacing solutes is just as important as replacing water volume by eating salty foods. I know sometimes we think as health coaches that salt is bad for you. In this particular case, when you're losing sodium, you have to replace it. One of the worst things that you can do is to just replace water volume and not replace solutes. Keep in mind when you're sweating, sometimes you'll see like white rings or whatever the case may be in your clothes when you've lost salt. Well, if you don't replace it, you exacerbate what we call this hyponatria, okay? Which means that you're below the sodium levels, all right? And so you have to also replace these other solutes as well. Sodium, chloride, calcium, potassium, and magnesium. Interestingly enough, some of these beverages here, if you can just see, I got my bifocal contact lens. What are some of the solutes that you see? I'm on video here. So what are some of the things you see added in that? Calcium? Okay.
Let's see.
Right. I know sometimes. Say again?
Potassium.
Okay, potassium.
Magnesium.
Okay, great. And so when it comes to rehydration, a lot of times we like to think of just replacing the water volume, but it is important to replace solutes as well. I talked to a member one time here. Actually, he was a cyclist. And he mentioned that he used to get very, very fatigued or run into the wall, so to speak. And he said he took a product called Scratch Nutrition. And Scratch Nutrition enabled him to lower to raise his lactic acid threshold, which was able to ride longer. And also he said he was able to, at the 55-mile mark, he said it actually finished the race before he had even knew it was over. Okay? So, football play, can anyone else think of an example or whatever the case would be as far as hydration? Or you just coming in here, we're talking about just hydration. Can you think of a time where hydration or dehydration kind of impacted your performance?
Not specifically, because that was one thing that I always took serious.
Okay.
But just seeing people people have gotten, concussions and stuff, in the middle of camp. They would, for whatever reason, deprive themselves of water, trying to stay in and I guess please the coaches for extra reps, and then they end up lacking focus, other places, and then it was due to dehydration,
Okay.
by the trainer. Well, that was what the trainer would say.
Okay, all right, any questions or comments? Yes,
Is it true that back in the day, like, and I say back in the day, where they, to replace it, some athletes would use pickle juice to drink
yes,
because of the salt content?
right, exactly. I used to make fun of that, but after taking this class, that does make sense. I mean, so yeah, it does. Just replacing water volume alone can kind of make the problem worse when it comes to hyponatria. Okay, so yeah,